Hello. This is my first time doing something like this, and to be honest, I enjoyed it. Leave your feedback in the comment section. If you have any stories to share, don't hesitate to send them to me on my Instagram, Facebook, Reddit, or in comments. Without any other further ado, let's get into it. This story happened to me back when I was in high school, around the time when I started my research on paranormal and the occult. I have to mention that this incident had nothing to do with my research. This specific day was supposed to be a chill one, so I was in my house lighting candles all over my room, on my shelves, my desk, even on top of my fireplace. There must have been 50 candles all around the place, and I gotta admit that it looked pretty amazing, so I decided to record it on my phone. While doing it, I'm sure that I was alone and no other sound was around me. The next day, I went to my friend's house and wanted to show her the recording. Just after I started showing her the recording, she told me to pump the volume to max cause she thought that she heard something. And then it hit me. On my recording, we heard lots and lots of voices, like we were in the middle of a market or a crowded place and there are people talking all around you. And the scariest part of this is the ending, where we heard a deep, dark, demonic laughter. And then complete silence and the recording ended. Till this day I have no clue about what we heard in that recording. To this day, me and my best friend believe we saw each other's doppelganger. But before I can get to that, I need to give you the layout of the house in which this event takes place. Once you walked through the door, there was a staircase to the right side leading upstairs, and to your left would have been the living room of the house. There was a short hallway that connects the front entrance to the kitchen and dining room. In that hallway was a door that led downstairs to the basement. Once in the basement, there were only two rooms, my bedroom and the laundry room. Now that you have the layout of the house, I will explain the experience me and my best friend had in that house. My buddy had moved out of his mom's house and came to stay with my family, but we didn't exactly have a room since my brothers, sister, and parents had taken the rooms upstairs and I had taken the only room downstairs. My buddy had brought most of his stuff from his mom's house, including his futon. We placed his futon in my bedroom on the wall directly across from the door, since my bed was on the wall to the right side of the door and the television was on the left side of the door. It was a hot night in July of 2011 when my buddy had his experience. He had asked me if I wanted to watch the new Transformers movie with him, and I told him that instead of doing that, I was going to hang out upstairs with my brothers and play video games on our Xbox 360. About 45 minutes had passed when my buddy came upstairs and I hollered out, "Hey man, if you brought up the 6, give me one, bro." That's when my buddy walked into the front room and made eye contact with me and said, "How the hell did you get up here that fast?" I was confused and said, "Bro, what do you mean?" "Dude, I was just chilling on the bed watching Transformers and you were sprawled out on the futon." I told him that there was no way that was possible because I had been upstairs this whole entire time with my brothers playing video games and he just stood there with a puzzled look on his face. About 2 weeks later, I was chilling out and relaxing on my bed watching the very same Transformers movie, talking to my buddy who was sprawled out on the futon, when I heard my little brother shouting upstairs. So I went up there to see what was wrong, just to see that my buddy was in the front room arguing with him about who was going to play on the Xbox. When my buddy turned around, I told him that he had just been downstairs watching Transformers again with me, when he told me that it wasn't possible because he had just gotten home with his girlfriend. That's when we both realized that whatever we saw, it was the same thing. To this day, we are not sure if that was a doppelganger or a shadow person, but it still scares the crap out of us when we talk about it. This story happened to me recently. To be more specific, it happened to me last night. As I lay down in my bed, dark thoughts started intriguing my head and I got to the point where I was just worried about nothing. The feeling of someone you love passing kept me awake for a long time. Still feeling like something's wrong, around 3 AM I finally managed to fall asleep. I dreamed about me looking at a woman in her mid to late 30s. But being in a dream, as I was looking at her, I could distinct her smile and the fact that she was holding me close to her. After a good couple of minutes of her holding me like that, She just let go of me and just left in the darkness surrounding us. After I woke up, I forgot my dream. But late in the day, I remembered my dream and explained it to my mom, asking for opinions. As I was telling her the story, I could see the color of her skin go pale. After I finished, she told me something that shocked me. She said, "You know, I'm not your real mom." Apparently my real mom abandoned me after her house burned down. This woman, being my mom's best friend, took care of me and raised me as her own. My real mom was run over by a car last night, and this dream of mine might have been the last touch I ever had with her. This happened around Halloween 2 years ago. I went to college in a little bit of a rundown city. It was the kind of place you try to avoid going anywhere alone, especially being a girl. After having some roommate troubles, my one wealthier friend decided he wanted to buy a house near the college. We could live there while attending the school, and once we'd graduate, we could rent it out to students and gain some profit. He found the house for very cheap in a development on the other side of the college. Not many students lived over there. He bought it and we began remodeling it. The house was about halfway done when Halloween rolled around. Halloween is my absolute favorite holiday because I love the creepy vibe. The neighborhood we moved into was sketchy, to say the least. Across the street was a low-income living complex with neighbors who would stand on their porches and stare at us every day, never saying hi or even a single word, just staring. It was unnerving, but we were just happy to have a house with, no rules. It was Halloween Eve and I was getting restless. None of my friends wanted to go to haunted houses or anything. I didn't get to adventure in our new neighborhood, and there was some woods and the highway behind our house. I begged my friends to adventure with me, but only one would. His name is Ronnie and he's a lot like me in that way. And so him and I set off. There was a huge gate blocking off the entrance to the woods, but there was a path next to it that made it easily accessible. The beginning of our adventure was nice. We found a stream and followed the path deeper in the woods. As we were walking, we stumbled onto a homeless person camp. It gave me a weird feeling, but we decided to check it out anyways. It didn't seem like anyone was there. The homeless person had what looked like a tree stand set up, a fire pit, a bent over tree with banks to climb, and more. We were laughing and just admiring the effort the person had put into it. We ended up finding a tent even deeper in the trees. My stomach did a flip-flop. It was zipped shut. We discussed on whether we should open it or not. Something deep in my gut told me not to and to just get the hell out of there. I told Ronnie we should leave it and he agreed, most likely having the same feelings. We also didn't want to intrude too much, as this was someone's home after all. We started to leave, got up the path a little ways, and I was stopped in my tracks. I felt like we were being watched. I slowly turned around and saw him. In the trees stood a man with a long, scratchy beard. He had a black, dirty hoodie over his head. He was just standing there watching us. I couldn't move, I couldn't scream. I stared back in shock when Ronnie realized I stopped walking. "Ronnie?" I said with my voice cracking. Ronnie looked at me, then followed my gaze to the trees line. "Run!" he yelled. My legs moved before my mind did. We ran as fast as we could. There was mud puddles all around and Ronnie pointing them out to me, as to make sure I didn't fall and get caught by the man. I didn't dare to look behind. I didn't want to know if he was following us or not. We sprinted out of the woods and back to the house. We burst through the door yelling for our friends. My other roommates didn't believe what just happened to us, probably not wanting to be scared of where we were living now. I never saw the man again and never went back in the same woods. My bedroom window was facing the backyard and every night I was scared he'd be watching. A lot of shit happened at that house. An example being a woman from the complex across the street letting herself in our house while I was home alone. One of my roommates forgot to lock the door. She was drunk and asked repeatedly if this was a frat house. I told her it wasn't and tried to be nice, but she was touching all of our stuff and not taking the hint to leave. I ended up having to kick her out. Overall though, it was a decent experience living there. COVID hit and forced me to move out and back home early. I've since graduated college and moved out of the house for good. I'll never forget the place. A couple of months ago, a man came to my front door and as I opened it, he fell to his knees. He cried out to me, "I am so sorry that I murdered your family. Could you ever forgive me?" And I told him that my family were alive and well. I took him inside and there he saw my wife and my 2 children. He started to rejoice and he couldn't believe it at all, and it was like a burden had been lifted off his shoulders. He then came to my home on another day crying to me that he was seeking forgiveness for murdering my family. I informed him that there was nothing to forgive because my family were alive and well. He looked so confused and I took him inside to show him my wife and 2 children. He rejoiced so much more over them. He hugged my 2 children and called my wife beautiful. His positivity was immense, which is something that my family was lacking due to marriage problems. He kept coming to my house and breaking down and apologizing for murdering my family. Every time he came, I showed him my family and he rejoiced even more. He hugged my children, which is something I have never done, and even hugged my wife, which is something that I stopped doing. Then as time went by, my family were starting to like this stranger and my wife was growing worried for him as well. She wanted to make sure that this man will never think that he has murdered my family if both my children and my wife lived with him for a while. I accepted. I enjoyed the silence and loneliness in my home for a while, but when I tried to contact my wife, she wouldn't answer. When I tried to contact my children, they wouldn't answer. Then when I went over to this man's house, what I saw through the window had completely blown me away. My wife was kissing the man who always used to come to my door thinking that he had murdered my family. Even my own children looked happier with him. He didn't murder my family, but he took them away from me. My wife then gave me a call, telling me that she's leaving me with the kids. The reasons being that I am a cold, distant, and negative person. Unfortunately, this is my sad story, and maybe I should also tell you that after murdering all of them, I got lost in the woods and ended up in front of my house, where seeing my wife and children through the window, I could not handle it, and so I knocked at the door while crying and asked for forgiveness.